video 2 of the park map for Alton Towers project. Moving on next, what we're going to be doing is picking a theme for a zone that we want to work on, choosing some colours, and then we're going to start doing the vectors of the actual paths in this section. So again, like I said last time, in my PDF of my map, I picked black and red as a kind of as a colour scheme, and there's a reason I chose these colours, and that's based on the fact that each zone in the map actually has a theme. So if you go back to, if you just open up a new window and just type Alton Towers, if you just search that, the hit that you're interested in is actually the Wikipedia result, which I've already opened up here. And the great thing about the Wikipedia page, I mean, you can find out all this information from the park map, and if you look into the Alton Towers website. But the Wikipedia page is quite a useful place. It's got some quite good information about each of the zones, which are all listed down here under section 5. So I was talking about some of the zones being aimed at quite young children and how those zones might look different. For example, I think Cloud Cuckoo Land and obviously CBeebies Land and so on, those are actually specifically aimed at quite young children. And you've got places like Gloomy Wood and Dark Forest, which might be quite dark themed zones. Katanga Canyon might be quite out in the Wild West and so on, and you've got a pirate one. Mutiny Bay is obviously very pirate themed. So anyway, I've been picking X Sector for this guide, and interestingly, I didn't know this, X Sector is actually has an Orwellian undertone, it says. And for those that don't know what George Orwell wrote, the book 1984, it's quite a nasty future whereby the government are in power and everyone is quite oppressed by the nasty overlord government, and essentially everyone works for the government, and they don't really you can't speak and you don't have independent expression and so on. So for example, if I search 1984 as a tab, or even 1984 art seems to come up, let's see what we get. We're going to get lots of images of hate, things to do with slavery and people being working for the government and so on. So it's quite an oppressive theme in a lot of the imagery that you get, and I'm hoping that the map kind of portrays some of that. So maybe you want to go down and do a color, like a little theme idea, get some colors, think about some inspiration, maybe make a mood board and so on for your project. Either way, I'm just going to pick some blacks and reds for the guide. So back to your Illustrator map. You can zoom in with Control+. Control+, Control- will zoom you in and out. I'm just going to, for this little guide, do this little section. Obviously your goal is to build the whole lot. Remember that last session we clicked on this little block down here to create a layer called Paths. Paths I can hide and show, there's nothing in it, and in BG in the background there's actually a park map. So make sure you're working in Paths, and you can make sure you're doing that by padlocking the BG so you don't edit the wrong layer, and we stay in Paths. The tool we're going to be using for this is the pen tool. Or you can press P. There's lots of tools under there, you can just hold down, but we're going to be using the pen tool. And this is where you can set the foreground and the stroke and the fill color. So I'm going to go for a stroke color. I double click then, and I'm just going to go for a stroke to represent the actual paths. I might go for something quite, I don't know, some kind of dark red. That'll do me. I'll press OK. That's the stroke color done. It's made a copy of it up here so you can see a representation of it. And I can double click on the fill as well, just because I want there to be a little fill in between the zones. I want them actually to have some color. You don't need to do that, but you can. You can put anything you like. Let's just have it transparent for now. So I've got the fill selected, and I'm just going to press none. That's that little block down there. I can go none. You can do a gradient fill if you want, and so on. But I'm just going to say none. So there's a red stroke. The properties of it are up here at the top. So I can change the properties of it. I might go for 10 point just so we can see what that looks like. And this is how the pen tool works. You click. I did a single click without dragging, and I can see there's a curve here. So this is, it's a skill you get quite good at. Essentially there's a curve here, and what I'm going to do is actually go right down to the end point of that curve, and I'm going to click and hold and drag. It doesn't actually matter if you don't get it perfect. Remember, this is only a map. And what that does is it makes my curve. I might decide that 10 point is actually too big for my track, but in reflection, I'm quite happy with that product. The next one I want to do goes from here to about there, but the problem is when I click and drag, doesn't matter what I do, I cannot get that curve to follow that track. Well, that's because of this line here, because that was the original line I pulled down and did that one. Now there's two choices. One, I can go in afterwards with the white arrow and I can adjust those, or 2, I can undo what I just did and actually just click on the point in the middle there, which means it gets rid of the second part but leaves the first part intact. So it's hard to start with, but you get better at it. But anyway, I'll do that here. I'll just click and drag that one, and then I might find the same problem here. So I might go to here now, and yeah, it's noticing exactly the same problem. No matter what I do, I can't get it right. So I'm just going to press Control Z again, and on this one I'll try it the other way. Let's just go right to the end. I click and drag to the end, and I'm going to do that. But you can see in the finished product it doesn't match nicely. So this is where I get, unlike last time when we used the black selection tool, which can be used to move things and shunt things around, what we're going to do instead is use the white arrow on that point there, and we're just going to say to it, you know what, that second part of that line, I don't want to be that long. You know, it's not perfect, but you can get it right if you play around with it. Anyway, that's the line I've done. And if you look in layers, you can now see there's a little arrow on paths, and that contains a little section which gets by default the name path, because it's a path that I just created. So if you just try and remember from this, the white arrow is for sub-selection, which allows you to move elements. You can click on the points and make adjustments to them and so on. And the black arrow is for selecting, resizing, and moving objects. As opposed, so this one usually gets called the sub-selection, or in this it's called direct selection, and in the other one it's called the selection tool. I'm just going to call them the black arrow and the white arrow. And you can carry on building up the different objects. It's easier if you work on solids, so you build the whole solids, and then you do the little lines that link them later. So I'll just do the next one just so you can see. So I'll start here, do a point there, do a point there. I can click on the middle point just so it stops. Oops. I can click on that point there just to get it so that that second line disappears. I'm going to do 1 to about there. That's just a click. I didn't even do a click or drag. Oh, I've done a mistake there. So I'll do 1 here and 1 here, 1 here, and 1 to finish the shape. You can notice if I zoom in as well. Oops, if I zoom in with the pen tool, I just changed it, let's go back to the pen tool, you can see the little shape changes to, oops, I've deselected, let's zoom out again, pen tool, let's carry on from here, and I want to finish the shape. Sorry, what I was trying to show was when it finishes, if I zoom in, don't know if you can see it, there's a little O there by the pen, which means it's going to make a solid shape when it finishes. And solid shapes, you can go back afterwards, you can select them with the black arrow, you can select any shape and change the properties of it. So I could select that one and say, you know, I don't want a transparent fill anymore, I want a blue fill. I don't know, that's not within line of the colours that I should be going for, or in this case I could go for a dark bluey grey kind of colour. And there you go, that's the basics of it. Obviously, later on you might want to do some stuff with some other objects that are behind there, and you can show and hide layers, but that'll do for the second video. The objective today really is just to get the path, or in this video is to get the paths finished.